Field. BMO Field.
The World Cup is less than a year away, and today we got our first look at the changes being made to BMO Field to host the global game.
Recently, in the beating heart of Toronto, Canada's first ever soccer-specific stadium completed a major transformation. And there's a good reason for that. It is one of the lucky few chosen to host the 2026 World Cup, including Canada's opening match of the tournament. With 4 massive new LED screens, a dedicated district that will turn the area around the stadium into a kind of tournament city, and a capacity that is nearly doubling for the big moment, BMO Field is going all in on the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity it has been given. But as the big moment approaches, doubts are growing. Can it really live up to expectations? And why has it become one of the most controversial stadiums in the entire tournament? It is time to step inside one of the most intriguing stadiums in the tournament. One that, despite all the obstacles, promises to deliver an unforgettable show. Long before BMO Field became part of FIFA's World Cup plans, the stadium was originally built to solve a major problem in Canadian soccer. The country lacked a modern soccer-specific venue capable of hosting major international events. In the early 2000s, professional soccer still occupied a relatively small space in Canada's sports landscape, and few expected Toronto would eventually host matches at the largest World Cup in history. That changed in 2003, when the Canadian Soccer Association began pursuing plans for a new national soccer stadium at Exhibition Place on Toronto's waterfront. The project gained momentum after FIFA awarded Canada the hosting rights for the 2007 FIFA U20 World Cup in August 2004. Around the same time, Major League Soccer officially announced the Toronto FC franchise in May 2006, after construction had already started earlier that year. Construction started in 2006 on the former site of Exhibition Stadium. The venue was designed by Brisbane Brook Bainan architects, while sports architecture firm Gensler later helped lead the major 2014 to 2016 expansion redesign. Structural engineering was handled by Halcro Yoles, and PCL Construction served as the lead contractor. Unlike the giant multi-purpose stadiums common across North America, BMO Field followed a more European approach focused on steep seating bowls, intimate sightlines, and a stronger connection between fans and the pitch. When the stadium opened in 2007, with a capacity of roughly 20,000 seats, it immediately became the centerpiece of professional soccer in Canada. But the venue quickly outgrew its original purpose. Toronto FC became one of MLS's strongest attendance draws, while Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, or MLSE, expanded the stadium's role by bringing the CFL's Toronto Argonauts to the venue. That led to a major redevelopment between 2014 and 2016, adding upper seating decks, expanded concourses, hospitality spaces, and a large canopy roof. The redesign permanently transformed BMO Field into a multi-purpose stadium shared by both soccer and Canadian football. That balancing act would later become one of the biggest problems in Toronto's World Cup preparations. In 2018, FIFA officially awarded the 2026 FIFA World Cup to the joint bid shared by Canada, the United States, and Mexico. The tournament itself would be historic, expanding from 32 to 48 teams and becoming the largest World Cup ever staged. Toronto quickly emerged as one of Canada's leading host city candidates. As the country's largest city and biggest media market, it offered FIFA enormous international visibility. But Canada also faced a major disadvantage compared to the United States. Most American host cities already had enormous NFL stadiums capable of meeting FIFA requirements with relatively minor adjustments. Canada had very few venues considered World Cup ready. That made Toronto and Vancouver the obvious Canadian choices when FIFA officially announced the host cities in 2022. But BMO Field came with a major complication. Even after previous renovations, it remained the smallest venue selected for the entire tournament. FIFA's standards demand far more than simply hosting soccer matches. Modern World Cup stadiums must handle massive media, security, hospitality, and broadcasting operations, turning them into tournament-controlled hubs during the event. That control even extends to the stadium's identity. Because FIFA prohibits non-official commercial naming rights during the World Cup, BMO Field will temporarily disappear during the tournament and officially operate under the generic name Toronto Stadium. At the same time, concerns surrounding the project were already beginning to grow. Critics questioned whether a venue originally designed for MLS and CFL use could realistically satisfy FIFA's increasingly demanding standards without extensive temporary modifications. Others pointed to Toronto's climate and the stadium's heavy year-round usage, especially as FIFA requires a natural grass playing surface despite the venue regularly hosting both soccer and Canadian football. Meanwhile, supporters argued the tournament represented a once-in-a-generation opportunity to place Toronto at the center of the world's largest sporting event. The stadium is scheduled to host 6 World Cup matches, including Canada's opening men's national team match and a round of 32 knockout games introduced as part of the expanding 48-team tournament. What began as a modest soccer stadium built for a youth tournament had suddenly become one of the most heavily scrutinized World Cup venues in North America. Major renovation planning officially began after FIFA confirmed Toronto as a host city on June 16, 2022, with construction and stadium upgrade work ramping up in phases ahead of the 2026 World Cup, and almost every part of the stadium needed to change. The biggest issue was capacity. BMO Field's permanent seating ranged between roughly 28,000 and 30,000 depending on configuration. FIFA required the stadium to expand to 45,736 seats during the tournament, forcing planners to redesign a massive temporary expansion. Most of the additional 17,745 seats were planned primarily for the north and south ends of the stadium, using temporary steel-supported upper deck structures integrated into the existing bowl. Engineers had to ensure the seating met FIFA standards for structural loading, sightlines, accessibility, crowd movement, and emergency evacuation, while connecting safely to infrastructure never originally intended for World Cup-sized attendance. And that approach became the center of the controversy, as Toronto is essentially expanding BMO Field for a tournament lasting only a few weeks. Critics argued the city was spending heavily on infrastructure, driven more by FIFA's short-term requirements than by long-term local needs. But the controversy around the temporary seats went beyond finances. When photos of the newly erected stands began circulating widely on social media in March 2026, the reaction was immediate and intense. Images showed deep, curved structures supported by visible scaffolding, and many viewers said the stands looked unsafe. Comments described the temporary grandstands as terrifying, with fans questioning both the safety and the sightlines from the upper rows. Some pointed out that the seats appeared far from the pitch, with the existing canopy roof potentially creating obstructed views for those at the top. Others compared the look of the scaffolding-style structure to a construction site rather than a World Cup venue. In response, the City of Toronto issued a public statement confirming that the seating structures had been designed to meet all building codes and would undergo inspections before being approved for use. MLSE added that the temporary stands followed FIFA safety and sightline requirements, and that similar structures have been used successfully at major events worldwide. But seating was only one part of the transformation. One of the most technically difficult aspects of the project involves the playing surface itself. BMO Field uses a hybrid playing surface, but FIFA requires a tournament-approved playing surface for all World Cup matches. That creates a major challenge in Toronto's climate and operational schedule. Unlike soccer-only venues used once or twice a week, BMO Field regularly hosts Toronto FC matches, Toronto Argonauts games, concerts, and large public events. Maintaining elite natural grass under those conditions required major upgrades beneath the field itself, including drainage, irrigation, turf support systems, and field-level infrastructure designed to maintain consistent playing conditions throughout the tournament. The stadium's multi-use design made the project even more complicated. CFL football requires a much larger field than FIFA soccer, forcing the stadium to constantly adapt between two different layouts. That affected seating, sideline spacing, maintenance schedules, and overall planning throughout the renovation process. The Argonauts' schedule also had to be carefully coordinated around FIFA preparations. But FIFA's demands extend far beyond the field. Modern World Cup stadiums function almost like temporary broadcast cities, with international television coverage driving enormous behind-the-scenes media operations. At BMO Field, plans included expanded press facilities, upgraded media tribunes, additional camera platforms, commentary booths, interview areas, and large broadcast compounds throughout exhibition plays. Telecommunications infrastructure was also heavily upgraded. The stadium requires expanded fiber connectivity, upgraded Wi-Fi systems, large-scale data transmission networks, and digital communications infrastructure capable of supporting ultra-high-definition broadcasts distributed globally throughout the tournament. The player facilities also received major upgrades. FIFA requires significantly larger operational spaces than those typically used during MLS or CFL games. Plans included expanded locker rooms, upgraded medical facilities, anti-doping control rooms, referee preparation areas, secure internal circulation corridors, and separated access systems for teams, officials, media personnel, and VIP guests. Modern World Cups generate enormous revenue through premium experiences, sponsorship programs, and corporate entertainment. As part of the stadium transformation, BMO Field upgraded hospitality lounges, suites, concessions, premium seating areas, and guest circulation spaces designed around FIFA operations. Existing premium areas such as the BMO Club, Tunnel Club, Fieldside Lounge, LG West Club, suites, loge boxes, and rooftop hospitality spaces are expected to play a major role during tournament matches. Technology upgrades became another major part of the project. The renovation included 4 new LED video boards measuring roughly 50 by 30 feet, each about half the size of a basketball court. BMO Field also received upgraded ribbon boards, enhanced digital signage, expanded broadcast infrastructure, and a larger video production control room with isolated sound booths designed to handle FIFA's massive global media operations. Stadium officials significantly expanded the number of broadcast cameras while upgrading the venue's studio systems, public address technology, LED sports lighting, Wi-Fi connectivity, and overall broadcast capabilities. Together, those upgrades were designed to modernize both the in-stadium fan experience and the venue's international television production standards. Among the most significant permanent additions to the venue is a new North Concourse, which the city and MLSE have presented as one of the project's lasting legacy upgrades. The North Concourse includes new fan experience destinations designed to improve how supporters move through and enjoy the stadium. Food and concession services were also substantially upgraded, including a new West Kitchen, expanded service areas, and self-serve concession technology, specifically designed to reduce wait times and improve crowd flow on busy match days. The project also included full seat replacements throughout parts of the venue, accessibility improvements, enhanced accessible seating areas, and improved wayfinding systems to help fans navigate the stadium more easily. These upgrades are expected to remain long after the World Cup ends, improving the everyday experience for Toronto FC and Toronto Argonauts fans for years to come. Outside the stadium, the transformation becomes even larger. During the World Cup, Exhibition Place will effectively function as a controlled FIFA event district. Plans include layered security perimeters, credential checkpoints, sponsor activation zones, transportation staging areas, pedestrian management systems, and large-scale crowd control operations surrounding the venue itself. That process is known as the FIFA Overlay System, the temporary transformation of stadiums and surrounding districts into controlled tournament infrastructure. And in Toronto, that overlay extends far beyond the seating bowl itself. Transportation planning has also become one of the most significant and contentious aspects of Toronto's World Cup preparations. The city has confirmed there will be no public parking at Toronto Stadium, Exhibition Place, or in nearby neighborhoods including Liberty Village and Fort York on match days. Instead, Toronto has adopted a transit-first approach, directing fans and visitors to use TTC streetcars, buses, and GO Transit Regional Rail to reach the venue. BMO Field will host the opening match of the Canadian men's national team against Bosnia and Herzegovina on June 12, 2026. Ahead of the tournament, Canada also hosted Iceland in a friendly at BMO Field, giving the newly renovated venue its first test in front of fans. But the stadium's readiness was put to a large-scale test on May 10, 2026, when Toronto FC hosted Inter Miami in an MLS match. A sellout crowd of 44,828 fans, including approximately 17,000 spectators in the newly erected temporary grandstands, packed the renovated venue for the first time at near-full World Cup capacity. The match tested crowd management, transportation systems, and emergency operations at scale, giving city planners and stadium officials a final opportunity to identify and address any remaining issues ahead of the tournament. Fans inside the temporary seats reported that sightlines were better than the viral images had suggested, though the steep incline and scaffolding-style exterior remained a talking point. For a few weeks in 2026, the venue will stop functioning as Toronto Stadium and become part of FIFA's global tournament machine. But whether that transformation ultimately benefits Toronto long after the World Cup ends remains the biggest question surrounding the entire project. As preparations for the 2026 FIFA World Cup continue, BMO Field has become one of the clearest examples of the growing debate surrounding modern mega-events, tournaments that promise global exposure while placing enormous financial and operational pressure on host cities. When Toronto first pursued World Cup hosting rights, upgrade estimates were far lower than they are today. But as FIFA's requirements became clearer and inflation pushed construction, infrastructure, and security costs upward, projected expenses climbed dramatically. By 2024, stadium-related upgrades alone were projected to cost roughly 150 million Canadian dollars. By the time renovations were completed, that figure had officially climbed to 158 million, or about 114 million US dollars. That escalation quickly made the project politically controversial. The stadium renovation was funded through a combination of public and private contributions. The City of Toronto covered 133 million, while Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which operates BMO Field, contributed the remaining 25 million. But the stadium renovation was only one piece of a far larger financial picture. Toronto's total public cost of hosting 6 World Cup matches was budgeted at approximately $380 million, according to the City of Toronto's own figures and confirmed by Canada's Parliamentary Budget Officer in April 2026. That broader budget covered operating costs, security, transportation, and tournament infrastructure well beyond the stadium itself. To help offset those costs, the provincial government of Ontario committed $97 million, and the federal government committed $104 million toward Toronto's hosting obligations. Though even combined, those contributions covered less than half of the city's total $380 million burden. Critics argue that while FIFA profits enormously from the tournament, the financial burden falls almost entirely on taxpayers. And in Toronto's case, those costs grew far beyond what anyone initially projected. Supporters, however, see the project very differently. They argue the World Cup gives Toronto a once-in-a-generation opportunity to place itself at the center of the world's largest sporting event. FIFA expects the tournament to attract billions of viewers worldwide, bringing enormous international exposure to the city. Tourism officials and business leaders believe the event could generate major economic activity through hotels, restaurants, transportation, and entertainment. Upgraded player facilities, the new North Concourse, improved food service and concession infrastructure, connectivity systems, accessibility upgrades, hospitality spaces, and other improvements throughout Exhibition Place will remain after the tournament ends, helping modernize one of Canada's most important soccer venues. Still, the debate surrounding BMO Field reflects a much larger global question. Modern World Cups have become so massive and operationally demanding that even existing stadiums often require enormous temporary transformations to satisfy FIFA standards. Whether Toronto's World Cup gamble will be remembered as visionary or excessive may ultimately depend on what remains once the tournament leaves town. Because after the final whistle blows and the temporary infrastructure disappears, the city will finally learn what $158 million actually bought. But despite BMO Field's massive and ambitious transformation, another Canadian stadium stole the country's biggest World Cup spotlight, nearly 3,350 kilometers away in Vancouver. Click the thumbnail on your screen, and I'll see you there.